Peer pressure. Pressure. Peer pressure.
And we're live.
And we live. Welcome back to the...
Don't move your face on the mic like that because they can't hear you when you're doing that.
Okay, let's restart.
I'm not going to restart this. I'm just going to play it. You just make yourself look a fool. I control the audio power.
And we live. Welcome back to the second episode of Peer Pages. Can I get some echo on that?
You're lucky I cut into this because he had like 8 different intros before
Peer
that.
Pages. All
But
right.
I chose consciously to edit it to that one because I want to save some face for my guy.
Thank you,
know
man.
what I mean?
I appreciate it. My face needs some saving.
Peer pressure.
And we're back. And so, this is chapters 6 through 10 of Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari. I can't do this. I can't
It's
do
going to
that.
be the episode of me leaving Brandon out to dry.
I got it. I can hold the show by myself, bro.
I'm just gonna
I can hold it out. You know why your shoulder's so big, bro?
You know, sometimes when
Put the
like
team on my back. That's
you're
why.
in a situation and you feel the awkwardness, and then you like say something to like ease the awkwardness.
You're not gonna say
I'm just
nothing.
gonna let it. I'm just gonna
Let it rock?
Yeah, I'm
Let
just
it
gonna
cook?
let it ride.
All right. So, I guess we could just start and just jump right into it if you want.
I guess.
Yeah. All right. So,
All right, all right, I'll play for real. Play with the big boys.
who are you?
Big baller brand. Never lost.
Big,
I'll
big,
feed you, baby birds.
big baller brand. Never
Shout out
lost.
to our new bomb.
I'll feed you, baby birds.
Thanks, baby. Hey, shout out to all our baby birds out there.
Hey, shout out baby birds, my guy.
Anyway, all
Blue
right.
Jays.
I know people are low on patience, so we gotta get into this real quick. Chapter 6.
Trying to cut me off?
No, never, bro.
I'll feed you, baby birds.
Let's get into this. And
pressure.
we're back.
All right. Building Pyramids, Chapter 6. So, last time on Peer Pages.
And last time.
on Peer Pages, we kind of got into the agricultural revolution.
Change everything.
You know, when wheat domesticated us.
By the way, this book is divided up into the revolutions. The cognitive revolution. The cognitive revolution.
Can you be gentle with my pen, please? Because I don't like the way you bend in the clip.
The cognitive revolution, the agricultural the ag rev, as I abbreviate it in my notes. And there's a couple more, I forgot them, but
The AGR, bro.
rolling on the ag rev right now.
All right, I feel that. And so basically the big idea of this chapter,
By the way, side note, Brandon only has notes on this chapter.
you know what it is, bro. Relying heavily on the, remember that show, PB&J Otter? PB&J Otter?
Yeah.
Do the noodle dance.
If you looked at last episode, you watched the video, Brandon was only relying off his notes. This episode, Brandon got the full book out,
the
bro.
book.
This was an open book test, my guy.
Man, I got A's on those, you know what I mean? This one's about to be a hit, bro. Anyway,
All right, bro. The people are trying to get into this. Come on.
All right. So agriculture.
They're leaving reviews. They're like, these guys
These
just
guys
like
just talk,
tandem
bro.
too much, bro. It's just like listening to nothing.
All right.
And we're back.
Peer pressure.
Don't worry, I'll cut all that out. All right, let's get into it.
So, the agricultural revolution basically allowed sapiens to look into the future, which is something that we couldn't do before because coming from our background as foragers and what's so funny?
Nah, go ahead. You good? Hey, Wakanda forever.
Wakanda forever, bro. Anyway, coming as from our background of like foragers and hunter gatherers and stuff like that, when we planted down roots and we started cultivating crops, that really allowed us to look into the future. Because, for example, farmers who were like tending to these crops and societies basically holding them up, they had to essentially look in the future and see if there would be a drought, if there would be like a swarm of locusts or whatever would mess up their.
I'm getting biblical on
You know
them.
what I mean?
I feel you, my guy. What's next? Your firstborn child is going to die if you don't put a red X in blood on your door?
Where's
That's
that
a
from?
deep cut, my guy.
Where's that from?
That's from the Moses, when he led the people out of
The
Jerusalem.
Moses,
The
huh?
Moses biblical thing.
All right. Anyway, so the farmers had to essentially look forward into the future, and that's something we had never done before. So that's basically what the agricultural revolution led us to do.
It tied us
and
down.
It allowed us to do that, but that did tie us down. But it also helped shape our societies and helped us create kingdoms, like these vast kingdoms, like
The Ottoman Empire, the Byzantine Empire.
Hammurabi and stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, don't get yo. Chill. They're not ready for that.
They're not ready for Hammurabi.
No, but what it did was it tied us down basically. Like we were foragers, we're moving all around. What's crazy is that like I don't know if you use the word invent or if we like because I think you talked about people who painted on cave walls and stuff.
Yeah.
like those people were obviously thinking of the future because they're like people will eventually see this or I can come back.
Do you think so?
That's what he said, and I don't know if I don't know how much I believe that.
Right.
But it makes sense that like all of a sudden when we had to worry about the future, that's when we started worrying about the future. Because I think about it, and you think about like animals, like dogs and stuff.
Oh, they're only in the present.
Yeah. So like there had to have been like a something that caused us to start thinking about the future.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that it's food. Because when we gain control of food, that's when we're like, are we gonna have enough? Like I have to do this. I have to make because not only like are we gonna have enough, but when we gain control, when we domesticated wheat, it like made us think like these crops only grow at certain times, and we knew
Right.
that. So we knew that we had to think of like, okay, if I plant these right here, I'm gonna have to plant these on the side because in 8 months from now, I'm gonna have to harvest these and then reseed these and stuff like that.
Also, because at this point, society started to build, and we had to think about how we were going to feed people going forward in years and years to come when these farms were just starting out.
My favorite part about this book is everything works like building blocks. Like
I like that.
We got to like it's like when you break it down or you look at like the reasons why, like
Break
how
it
we got
down
here. Break it down.
Wow.
No.
Wow.
But you look at like it makes so much sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like okay, we got control plans. Then we
Yeah.
start thinking about the future. Then because we got control plans, we're able to have these huge societies. One of my favorite parts of this book, and I'm surprised
me.
you didn't catch this,
Tell me.
was because I like read this and I was like, oh, Brandon's gonna know this for sure. Because
Might be
like
in my notes, man. You never know.
it's not. It's not.
Okay.
When we
Okay, sure. Thank you.
when we started making houses,
Yeah.
the effect of the architecture of houses.
Architecture.
Oh, this-
Say that again, please.
the effect of architecture had an effect on us personally.
Yeah.
Because what happened was like all of a sudden like we lived in a society where everything was open, we were moving around, our neighbors
I do
were with
remember
us.
that in the book. I was like, ooh, that's nice.
Yeah, I was like, oh, he's for sure gonna write that down. He wants to talk about that. We started having houses, and it
Yeah.
separated us from our neighbors.
Right.
We became individualized.
That's when I remember that because didn't he compare it to like present day where like we all have our own rooms, but
Yeah.
then back in ancient medieval whatever times,
Yeah.
everyone slept in like a big room, like in a big
With
hall,
a
you know
big
what I mean?
chamber.
Yeah,
With everyone else.
Yeah.
The same shit.
I feel that. But also another key point was that with this model of society that was beginning to take shape at this time, the majority of people were really poor. But then they were the ones that were actually like the cornerstones of society that were feeding the rich, which was a small minority. Small minorities is redundant. It was a minority in society where they would be the ones with all the power, but they wouldn't be doing any of the work. Essentially,
Yeah, it was all the people putting the work in the
Yeah.
field. You know what I mean?
but the people on top were the ones responsible for creating the myths of these societies that kept everyone in check.
One of the big things they pushed in this chapter was the effect that these myths had and like how they formed these like social structures.
Yeah. If you don't know, just backtracking a little bit.
don't know.
If you don't know, basically in the book, myths are really important because they're kind of like a universal thing amongst sapiens that they're stories or things that we can spread through society within our bands or tribes of people.
Yeah.
To help govern big societies and essentially stories that can help unite people's mentalities. But
Bro, you can't your own saying.
I just didn't think it would come out as good as it was.
You can't say it'll be like, damn.
You know,
I was tight. Yo, good looks, Brandon.
you know what
Wild.
it is.
Nah, but one of the cool things too was they said like wars were not fought over shortages of food. Like at these periods of time when these empires started building,
Yeah.
they were not having wars because they didn't have food.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest reasons they had wars, and it was crazy that they said this because like once we hit the cognitive revolution and once we started
CR, the Cogrev.
the Cogrev, the Agrev. Once we started hitting these revolutions, like the cognitive revolution, then we hit the agriculture revolution.
Yeah.
Which caused us to have like bigger societies.
Yeah.
What was crazy was he's saying like we were evolving at such a rate where we didn't have time to adapt. So like we weren't accustomed to living in these huge societies, these huge empires, that we started having wars like crazy. Because you look back then, there was wars out the ass. There was wars like war after war
War
after
at the
war.
wazoo.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
people
yeah.
were just fighting and fighting and fighting.
Yeah.
And they're saying that like our social, because we evolved so quickly and like we went from like literally foraging to like a few thousand years later, not a few thousand, a few 100,000 years later,
Yeah.
we were in empires like the Ottoman Empire and shit.
Right. So that's like biology has never seen that before, or like nature hasn't seen. They never seen us before. You know
At
what
this
I mean?
point, our cognitive evolution was surpassing our biological.
Yeah, like
evolution.
our minds outran our DNA.
We didn't have the capability to deal with these huge civilizations, and that we were just constantly fighting.
That's what they say about why partly like this is not in the book, but why people kind of are like overeat because like we're still foragers trapped in a modern society
Yeah.
where we're like not accustomed to having food on us all the time.
Yeah, well, we're just like if we have it in front of us, like our instinct is to
Eat it because we don't know when our next meal is coming from. But you know, we have meals out the wazoo.
It's wild because why
No, it's just funny.
I
Out the
looked at you
wazoo.
and your eyes looked at me and I could see your eyes and you were reaching for a word. You're like, I don't know wazoo, and I was like, all right. No, you know what's wild is there's a micro example of that. When I was playing football, I was a 2-sport athlete in high school.
Chill out,
first team
bro.
All American.
Chill out, bro.
I wasn't at all. I played 2 sports though, but I was when I was in between when I was playing like doing like 2-a-days.
Okay.
You know, no big deal.
Okay.
I would go home, eat like 20 tacos.
No, yeah.
You know, because I'm Mexican, so at home I only eat tacos. But no, I would go through them, and it was crazy because after that, like my appetite stayed at that level. You know what I mean? Like at a point like where I was only playing 1 sport, and I wasn't doing as much work as when I was doing 2.
Chunky boys.
I had the no, bro. I was in high school. In high school. We talking high school? Man, I was slaying, bro. I was cut. But anyway.
Yeah, all right.
But for real, my appetite didn't adjust
Right,
until
right.
like way later. Then
Yeah.
I had to like actively like control it
Yeah.
because I was a raging bore. You feel me?
I feel that.
One of the things that they got into in this chapter that I really liked
Yes.
was this the chapter that they talked about the code. Yeah, you know my guy.
They did talk about Hammurabi.
Hammurabi. Man, that was hype. This
Yeah.
is one of my favorite chapters because they went into what these myths mean.
The biggest societies need these myths. And if you think about the Code of Hammurabi, essentially we don't think about it as a quote unquote like myth. We think about it as like a set of rules, but essentially that this set of rules was made up like to govern the society.
Yeah.
Because like he says in the book, like nature doesn't have rules. You know what I mean? Like things happen, they just happen, right?
Yeah.
But these things, to live in this society, Hammurabi, I don't know where it was at, when it was at.
Break down Hammurabi for him.
You know.
Hammurabi.
So let me just get to the page in the book 'cause I didn't take notes.
God, my guy,
All right.
guy's literally switching. All right, so on page 96.
All right. So
He's about to read you a paragraph right quick.
yeah, essentially Hammurabi was a ruler of I don't know which empire. I don't know where at.
The Ottoman Empire
That's a lie.
in the 1200s.
You don't even know.
All right. Oh no, you wise up now?
You
Whatever.
know?
I made that up by the way. That's
Yeah,
not true.
I know. There's an excerpt in the book that gives like an example of the rules that were in the Code of Hammurabi. So, the first one is if a superior man should blind the eye of another superior man, they shall blind his eye. So an eye for an eye, essentially.
Basically, what the Code of Hammurabi was like 320 or something different laws that basically broke down like everything that could happen in society
Yeah.
and what the punishment or what the what the
Yes.
consequence would be.
So he also, I found it here. According to the code, people were.
You found it here in your book that you're reading right now.
Yes, I am. People were divided into 2 genders and 3 classes: superior people, commoners, and slaves. So, essentially, also like women were treated as property, slaves were property. So, for example, like if me and Dominic were superior people, and I like killed Dominic's slave or something, Dominic would have a chance to kill my slave. He wouldn't. The punishment would not fall upon me because essentially I damaged his property, and that would mean that Dominic would have the ability to damage my property.
What was wild too is if you look at these laws, the Code of Hammurabi is things were broken down like lives essentially were broken down into silver dollar amounts.
Yeah, like
They're-
shekels. You should say. Yeah.
It was literally like if you killed a slave or if you killed a woman or even if you killed a commoner, you would pay
A set amount.
in silver.
Yeah.
Which was nuts because and it was crazy because it actually broke it down and you could compare the values. It would literally say like the life of a commoner is worth this much and the life of a slave is worth
Exactly.
this much.
Go
But
ahead.
the cool thing about this chapter, and I think this is one of like one of my favorite chapters.
Yeah.
Because it compares the Code of Hammurabi to the Declaration of Independence, and what it's
I'll feed
and wow, can you
Sorry.
chill out, bro? Usually I'm the one going wild on the bombs.
I hit
I'm
full
gonna,
bombs right
I'm
there.
gonna have to hit you with the hand.
You're being loud, Jimmy. Let's
Have your parents ever been like somewhere? My dad used to do this. This is a YouTube exclusive. He said if I'd be doing some wild shit, he'd look at me like this and go. He mouth no and like a mean face,
Wow, that's crazy.
and I look at him and I'd be like, yes sir, yes sir. But anyway, one of the strongest points of this book is when he compares the Code of Hammurabi to Declaration of Independence, and the reason he does this is
DOI.
The DOI. I literally have that written in my notes too, the DOI. But the reason he does this is he's trying to drive home the point of these are just myths.
Yes.
Like these things exist in order to help govern society and help it flow smoothly. But in like actuality and reality, those things don't exist. And he gave the like comparison, like if Hammurabi was alive, he'd be like, nah, this is the way.
Yeah. I'll show you do a.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's the correct voice for the meme.
I don't even know what.
I don't understand that meme. If
Usually
someone
I'm
knows-
up on my memes.
Nah, that one just
that one
way over my
yeah.
head.
I feel like I'm getting old,
Right.
Because I'm not getting these memes these days.
Oh,
These
man,
young
these-
kids and
these
their memes.
Yeah, whatever.
No, but it was tight because he was like, if Hammurabi was alive today, he'd be like, "This is the way you should live."
Right.
And he like broke it down, and it made sense. And then the Declaration of Independence comes and like, no, this is the way you should live.
I never thought about how crazy it was to like come from another country, claim the land, and then say like, "This is how we're gonna live our lives." Like essentially creating the framework of America. You know what I mean?
Curating.
Curating and creating, curating the framework of America. It's kind of nuts. Like that's kind of a like it's a bigger deal than I've ever thought about after reading this book. Like I never thought it was a huge deal.
It's one of my favorite parts because it's basically saying like everything that we're like everything that we one of my I don't know if and I don't want to get ahead of myself because oh yeah, here we go. I have it written down right
Yeah.
here. This is where he got wild. He said human rights, this is a quote. I have it in quotes, just in big letters.
Give me that.
Human rights are a myth.
You know,
Let me hit him with one more. Let me hit him with one more.
Ah,
Humans and spiders have the same amount of natural rights.
eat that.
Eat that.
It's true though. It's true though.
And what he did, and it's something I truly believe because what he said, he was like all these things that we believe in today, like human rights, or and what he did is he broke down the Declaration of Independence,
Yeah.
and he like this is what we believe, and these are myths that we
Yeah.
tell ourselves, and he made it a point to say like. The Declaration of Independence is a myth
Yeah.
that we believe in order to, and we all believe it. It's hard to say that because like
We all buy into the system essentially to live in like living in America. We all have to buy into the
everyone is created equal. Pursuit of happiness.
the archetypal whatever values of the Declaration.
If you really examine like your life, we like I looked at it like we really live by those things.
Yeah.
Like the independent person, like
Oh,
you
for
know what I
sure.
mean? It's all about like what you want, like what makes you
What
happy.
makes you happy? Like,
go do
pursue
it.
it. Blah 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 blah.
And that's like such ingrained to us that it's so hard to think that that's not like that's
Yeah.
just something that we're telling ourselves.
Right, right. And also the people that wrote the Declaration, they did say all men, blah blah blah, created equal, all that, but they didn't account, like we said, like women. Or
Yeah, it's all
they
bullshit.
own slaves. You know what I
It
mean?
was all BS. Like it was like all men. They literally meant all white men
That's it.
are created equal.
That's all. So like we kind of like took it and like reformed it into fitting today's society or today's like shared mentality of like everyone, literally everyone is equal. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Even though it still doesn't go over that way for most people or like a lot of people today.
Yeah. And what he did, what I like about this guy is he has a pure separation of like biology and like the quote unquote natural world
Yeah.
compared to the like cognitive world and
That we created,
and the myth world that we live in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not the myth world, but like this conscious world that we live in.
Should we say the imagined order?
The imagined order.
Oh, there it is.
Right, and all these things that we think are true, but in like the natural world,
Right,
like in
right.
an animal's head, that doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist.
And that's why I like what he said about human rights. But he broke down, he went line by line in the Declaration of Independence
Right.
and like translated it into biological terms. And so one of my favorite parts was he has life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's like something we live by.
Mm-hmm.
But in biology terms, it's life and the pursuit of pleasure.
Ah.
You know what I mean? That it's just like what we are, and like what animals do is pursue
naturally animals pursue things that taste good, that feel good, that like,
Exactly.
exactly. So it's like
And he even talked about like happiness. He's like, there's not a pure definition. Like we haven't really come up with a what's the word for like recordable? I'm at a loss for words.
like
A defined,
you're right. Measurable, like
measurable. Yeah, that's
right.
what I mean. A measurable way to define happiness.
Exactly.
So it's as of now, it's the pursuit of pleasure.
Yeah.
And then he went into like again like these things that we believe in and like human rights.
Yeah.
And the right to do this and the right to do this. It's all
Made up. So
all made up.
essentially, he kind of talks about it in the way that like the wool is kind of over our eyes in a way. Like people aren't woke to
Yeah.
this. Like he said, I'm quoting again because I got the book right in front of me.
I know you guy.
3 main factors prevent people from realizing that the order organizing their lives exists only in their imagination. A, the imagined order is embedded in the material world. So it kind of overlays itself on top of the things that we have in the natural
He
world.
talked
today.
about advertisements and
right,
just
like
and,
our desires are not really our desires; they're marketing. You know what I mean?
and being born in like being born into the society, like you're gonna inherit those shared beliefs.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I had no choice to believe that what I want is the pursuit of happiness, and
Right.
life and liberty and all that
Right.
stuff. Like that was passed down to me.
right,
Just
right.
as it was passed down to me as much as like my skin color was passed down to me.
I feel that. And so again, the imagined order shapes our desires, which is he talks about like vacationing and like going places. Like, do you really want that, or is like he talks about how people in the past, like rulers and stuff, why would they want to go to a place that they're outnumbered in?
Yeah.
They don't know anybody. They don't know the language.
That part was wild because he was like, yeah, what we want, it was placed on us by consumerism that we want to
Yeah.
go out and spend money,
Experiences,
and go on
you know what I
vacation,
mean?
and that part was wild because like that's such a like ingrained part of me.
all
It was
the
like, yeah,
millennials out there buying
let's
experiences.
go travel.
you know?
Let's go travel and take pictures of my
Of
girlfriend in front of
holding
me
my
holding my
hand.
hand.
Oh, God.
in front of the pyramids.
If you don't know what we're talking about, don't even look it up. It's kind of trash.
God, that's
so
the most
corny.
that's the most trash
So
thing.
corny.
Yo, if any of my friends and some of my friends have taken
Hey,
these pictures like
shut-
this, I unfollow them instantly. I get them out of my life. I'm not trying to have any of that in my life.
hold my hand in front of me.
That's
Let me
nuts,
take
bro.
a picture. Like,
Yo, if you're doing that and you're listening to this podcast, unfollow. Turn this off right now.
Unsubscribe.
It's only gonna get worse for you. All right, because we're coming for you this
Cooked.
episode. We're disposing all the myths.
and the imagined order is intersubjective, and basically, intersubjective is something that exists within the communication network linking the subjective consciousness of many individuals.
That part was wild because he. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Because what he talks about is like one of my favorite quotes from this chapters too is humans and spiders have the same amount of natural rights.
Yeah.
Like we have the same. Like I have the right to think this, and like all these type of things. I have the right to pursue like my own happiness.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I mean, and again, I talked to Eric. Shout out Eric Aubrey,
Aubrey.
friend of the show, and we talk about existing between the two worlds, like knowing that these myths exist and knowing that like things are BS. Like basically, you know what I mean?
See through the fog.
But at the same time, like you have to operate within these. You know what I mean? You
You're
can
in
know
the rules. Like you have to. You know what I mean?
You can know that it's that's BS.
right.
But like I still have to operate within this space. Like I can't just go off and live by myself
Off
in the wood. You know
Well,
what I mean?
people do that, right?
can,
But it's
yeah.
not like it takes a massive amount of change, like a intersubjective change, like amongst people to like rise up and like change the idea like in society, change the myth.
Not only that, not only change the idea, but like you could like once you become hip to all this stuff and like become conscious of all that, you literally I saw your lip quiver when I said hip. I was like, once you become hip to this, you're like, you have to prevent yourself from laughing.
No,
Anyways,
I was gonna say you got a new word or what?
once you become woke to this shit,
I was gonna say what?
then all of a sudden you have two options. You can either like be aware of it and continue living within the matrix,
Bro, break out the matrix, man.
or you could dip out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's like a choice that like
I mean, but like, what options do you have though? Like, you kind of like if you're gonna try to be successful in today's world or like
Yeah.
in the world that we live in, like, you got to play by the rules. You know what I mean? But I think that it's important to realize that these are just like made up things, like constructs. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's hard. It's tough to.
That's why
balance it.
one of my favorite things to watch is Animal Planet,
Yeah.
because like watching Animal Planet makes me just so
Woke.
no, not only that, it makes me so aware that everything I'm doing now is BS.
Right.
It like connects me to this part where it's like everything not happens for a reason, but there's a reason for everything. You know what I mean? Like this is this way because of this. It like
Right.
breaks it down to so simple. Like this animal is doing this to do this.
Like he needs water, so he's gonna travel the desert.
or he like
He or she,
he or
you
she
know?
biologically needs to pass down their genes, so they're gonna court a female,
Right.
so they can get their genes passed down. You know what I mean?
Like this peacock has these feathers not to
and it's gonna
look
do
cool.
this dance,
Right.
And
It
everything
has to.
Everything has a reason,
Right.
You know what I mean? There's none of this like I'm gonna like her picture, so she sees that I like her picture,
Right.
but you know what I mean? Then you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm
It's
like,
also crazy that liking someone like a girl's picture, like you immediately think you're in there, like, oh, I'm gonna like her, so she knows. Like,
you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna hit up this girl and she's not gonna text me back, but she's gonna like my picture.
Yo,
so what is
you
she
know
trying to tell
what
me?
you
You
trying
know
to
what I
say?
mean?
There's
Like,
none
what
of
should I
that.
do? There's not
There's none
and,
of that.
like all the stuff that we think about, like is gun control correct, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like or all this type of stuff is like it doesn't matter.
right?
You know what I mean? This is stuff that we as humans get caught up in.
right.
So it brings me back to a point of balance.
I feel that, bro.
feel me?
We can end the episode right there.
Light my incense right now, my guy.
And so just skipping forward to chapter 7, which was a pretty easy chapter to read on. You know what I mean? It just covered.
Wait, I'm sorry. One more thing.
Go
I'm
for it.
sorry.
No,
I
you're-
want to end this chapter on a good note.
You're chilling, bro.
He said if Hammurabi and if the Declaration of Independence, the people like the founders, like George Washington,
Yeah.
George Washington would fight for what he thinks is right. Hammurabi would fight for what he thinks is right.
Yeah.
And none of them will be right. Even though like we're raised in a society, so we think George Washington will be right. And the last quote I want to say from this chapter: "We believe in a particular order, not because it is objectively true,
Yeah.
because there is no objective truth." I'm back to the quote now. That was just my interjection. You know what I
I
mean?
feel that, I feel that.
Damisito edition. But because believing in it enables us to cooperate effectively and forge a better society. This shit isn't true, but we do it to get along.
Yeah.
You know, peace and
It's
blessings.
the web that connects all human lives.
It's the way.
It's the way. What is that? What does that mean, bro?
Chapter 7, and we're back.
Peer pressure.
Memory overload.
By the way, this chapter, I'm a huge fan of this book. This chapter is garbage.
Dude, this chapter was a good break because chapter 6. Okay, wait. Chapter 8. My God, the densest, longest chapter I ever read in my life.
That's why this fool took no notes.
I was feeling like I was reading for class. I was like, oh, I gotta read chapter 8. Like,
Bro,
anyway,
if you
yeah.
look at my notes, chapter 8 has 3 pages.
Do you have 3 pages?
Bro,
of
chapter
notes?
8.
Dude, chapter 8 wrecked me, bro.
I ate
was
it
like,
up, bro.
It's like, ugh.
I
Dude,
love chapter
side note,
8.
you know, before all my testing in college,
Yeah.
I would read every chapter before the test. Like, I'll read every chapter word for word before, like, that was gonna
Bro,
be the
my
test.
guy, people, like,
I like doing that, though.
I'm not like, there's no flex. I would get good grades. Like, a lot of my classes were reading. Like,
Yeah,
because I
I
was
feel
like
that.
a liberal studies major. you know?
psychology hall, I'm dominant.
Yeah. And people would be like, yo, how do you get good grades? Because, you know, I was a star fucking student. You know what I'm saying?
Chill out with the F bomb. We have like 5 per episode.
Anyway, but I was like, yeah, we already used up like 2.
I know.
But I was like a really good student. And then
Yeah.
people would be like, yo, how do you get like what do you do? I was like,
Oh, Dami, what you do? What's your regimen? What's your skincare routine?
I was like, bro, I read the book. You
Yeah,
know
I
what I
know.
mean?
Oh, yeah, it's
people,
simple.
People like wouldn't read the book and then be like, yo, like I don't know why I did so bad.
Yo, new acronym, RTB, bro.
Yo,
RTB.
like
Bro,
if they're
RTB.
assigning these chapters, why would you not read it? You think you're gonna get by and not reading the book? I was amazed, and people would be like,
People want to read a book.
and people would look at me when I told them I read, and they'd be like, "You read the book?" Like,
yeah, bro, RTB.
yo, this test is on chapters 11 through 15. Why would you not read the book? Anyway, okay, I'm sorry. My
Rant
little
over.
rant for the day.
Peer pressure.
Memory overload, chapter 7.
Trash.
It was
It was
it was whatever, bro. It just basically talked about how our minds, when we started getting these complex societies going,
yeah.
we essentially had to keep a record. And he kind of broke down our minds in the fact that they work on, they're like more associative. So if you think about like basketball, you think about the hoop, and you think about Kobe, and then you just go on this tangent, like, and that's not efficient for
Free association.
Yeah, for record keeping.
Yeah.
So essentially, he talked about how writing was created.
Yeah.
And how we started using. He gave like specific terms for style, or not styles, but
It was partial script and full script.
thank you.
You
for
know
the,
me, bro.
Thanks for the note taking.
I did the reading, bro. So he talked about what was cool is he's like our brains basically were getting full.
Yeah.
Like we knew a lot about flowers, a lot about different stuff, but when we formed these like really complex societies and we needed to, you know, how much wheat do we have, and like our brains weren't evolved to take
Yeah.
in numerical
types of
data.
data, yeah.
The types of data we're now dealing with. So scripts came about, and he said that like the time that like scripts came about and the time that something else came about, and it's just not gonna matter if I can't remember the other part anyway. But what he said was like, this is when numbers were formed, and one of my favorite parts. I'm looking at it right now because you got your book.
Oh, Kashim.
I want to name my kid Kashim.
Is it Kushim or Kushim?
I have
or
no idea.
Kushim?
I want to say Kushim.
It's Kushim, and so what do you basically?
Bro, let me tell you. He's reading it. He's reading it.
I could tell it, brother.
All right, let's see. Let's see how you do. Let's do a test.
I'm gonna close the
You
book.
read the book?
I'm gonna close the book. So
Who's Kushim?
okay, so on one of the recordings, I forgot which empire it was in, but basically
Ottoman. I made that up.
Okay, yeah. So basically, he had a recording of the amounts of grain they had and the amounts of like supplies or whatever they had on it in clay that was engraved in clay, and they decoded all the symbols, and then the last symbol they essentially, or they is like scientists or anthropologists, whatever.
Yeah.
They decoded it as him signing his name.
What's important about that? What's important about Kushim?
That's the first time someone has ever signed their name on a document.
I'm proud, bro. I'm proud. You did your reading.
You know what it is, brother.
No, but that I think that's tight. I think that's tight that like that's the first, and he said like numbers and like writing was developed not as like to write poetry and write about like what we are as humans, but it was literally like the first thing was like
That's the first name, bro.
we had 18 barrels of grain in February.
Yeah.
Signed Kushim.
Adam who? Adam.
I don't get it.
Adam and Eve.
Oh.
You know, the first man.
Hit and
but
miss.
this is-
Hey, hit and miss, bro. Hit and miss. You live some, you live some, you learn some.
You live some, you learn.
I don't
All
know
right.
what the actual quote was.
All right, yeah.
But he talked about partial script and full script. And the first partial script can only it can't say everything that like language can.
it was just information recording. That's
Yeah.
partial script. Like you could just say we have 10 bags of rice, like
Yeah.
10 whatevers. You know what I mean?
And what was cool is he talked about math being one of the most important things that was ever invented and one of the most universal languages because everyone speaks the language of
Right.
math.
That's tight.
Which was it was kind of cool. It gave me a greater appreciation for math.
I don't know if you had flashback to our high school years.
Yeah.
We both had you had Mr. Rod, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if this was in our class or because I had him for 2 years in a row. So Mr. Rod would write like 2 + 2 = 5 on the board.
God. Yo, that's the corniest
he was like, no, I'm a fan of Mr. Rod. He was like, how do you say I love you in numbers? And because he would talk about like it's the universal language. Like you can't say I love you with numbers. I was like, oh damn, you right, Mr. Rod.
It's like, yeah, Mr. Rod, because it's a partial script, you dumbass. Read Sapiens.
But yeah, no. That was essentially. Is there anything else you want to touch on in chapter 7?
I literally have like a third of not even a third, like 1/4 of notes on chapter 7 because the last thing I said, mathematical scripts, most widely used script ever. It was basically talking about how our brains got full. We didn't
Yeah.
have enough, and then writing scripts, partial scripts, math came about, and it allowed us to keep records. It allowed us to do math, and it helped us out a lot. That's basically all.
And he did highlight that there were some societies or empires that did have better record keeping than other societies. Like
Yeah.
for example, like China and I think like Mesopotamia.
I'm done with this chapter.
And so,
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
dude, I'm used to it.
Whoa, yo, you hear that? You hear that, audience? That's some pent up aggression. Yo, peer pressure's over, my guy. This is the downfall.
The band is.
You look
band
at
is
this
broken.
episode 36, and you'd be
The
like,
fall
man,
of the-
that's when they went downhill. That's when they broke up. God, this is like NSYNC all over again.
Nah, but
I'm Justin Timberlake.
basically, God,
All right, go ahead.
Man of the Woods.
You can be Nick Lance, my
Man,
guy. Have fun in space.
There's no Nick Lance.
What is it?
Lance Bass, stupid.
Who's the one that went to space?
None of them.
No, there's one
There's
fool.
Nick Lachey, Joey Fatone, Justin
Is it
Timberlake.
a Backstreet Boy who went to space?
The Backstreet Boys is like it's like Aaron
Nick
Carter and
That's
Nick.
what I was doing.
Who went to space? Anyway,
There's
forget
a
it.
blonde haired dude from NSYNC who went to space.
Okay, forget it.
Whoa,
So,
yo.
in
You know what time it is?
Oh, thank you for reminding me.
It's free t-shirt time.
Free T-shirt time.
If you
okay. Side note: Dominic just cut off everything I was trying to say about Chapter 7 to close out, and just
I don't get because I hate chapter 7.
You're so.
If you're listening to this episode, it's time to give away another t-shirt.
All right. So
Wait. Can I finish?
let
Justin finish.
The fall of peer pressure now.
If you we post a video on Sunday. We'll post it tomorrow.
A clip on Instagram.
for episode 36. If you comment under that episode,
Can I choose it? The keyword.
No, I was gonna say it.
You got to
It,
do it
it has
last
to do with
time.
what we were just talking
You
about.
gotta do it
Fine,
last time.
whatever. It's gonna suck anyway if you do it. Go ahead.
The keyword is, and you got to say it. You got to type it out exactly like this.
God.
You got to say,
You have to name the member of NSYNC who went to space.
no, that's not it.
God, that's a good one.
No one, we don't even know that.
Yeah, you gotta look it up.
We don't even know that.
You gotta look it up. It's a gay dude.
Lance Bass.
Yeah, he went to space.
Oh, then you got to type in Lance Bass.
Or unless you want to do something different.
No, you could just say
It's not gonna be that
You could just say like Lance Bass and Justin Timberlake forever. Still.
Yeah, that's cool.
Lance
I'm down with
Bass,
that.
Lance Bass and Justin Timberlake
You can
forever.
be Lance Bass. I'll be Justin
Lance
Timberlake.
Bands.
Comment Lance Bass and Justin Timberlake forever under episode 36.
the clip.
And you get
also,
a free t-shirt.
you got to subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah. This is the
You
reason why
you
we're
gotta
doing
be
this.
following us on Instagram and subscribe on YouTube. Again, Lance Bass and Justin Timberlake forever. If you want to throw in a heart emoji, you can. Whatever.
Marketing geniuses, right?
You know. And make sure that you follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, write a review on iTunes. Blah blah blah.
All right, to chapter 8.
Peer pressure.
There is no justice in history. The longest chapter of my
Yo,
life.
this chapter was nuts. If
My
you're looking
God.
at this, like I'm holding it to the camera, 1 page of notes, 2 page of notes, 2.5 pages of notes on this B.
All right. So it kind of just, it's basically going over the deeper myths that govern society. So I know you took notes on this. Just kick it off from me.
Let me
real
hit
quick.
him with this. I'm ready.
Kick it off from me,
I
bro.
feel like I feel like Mayweather going against Conor McGregor. I'm going to beat that L. All right.
You're so annoying.
Modern Westerners are taught to scoff at the idea of a racial hierarchy, but follow the rules of a hierarchy between rich and poor. Rich people live in different areas, attend different schools, and receive medical attention in better facilities. I'm going to relate this to a report I did in college. Martin Luther King, one of the greatest Americans to ever walk the soil of America. I could have done that a lot better, but I was struggling at the end.
Hashtag Dominic Trash forever.
Yeah, it's okay. What a lot of people don't know, there's a lot of conspiracy theories about his death. A lot of people think the government did it. What's interesting is, here's my theory. Let me tell you.
What's up?
So the civil rights movement, this is taking place in the 1960s, right?
Yeah.
You have Martin Luther King. He's fighting for the rights of African Americans. I think the government already knew that was coming. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was already like something that was going to happen. And so they were more accepting to let Martin Luther King do that. You know what I mean? And it was a hard fight, and eventually he ended up being successful. What little people know is after that, Martin Luther King didn't go away. He changed his view. And what he started saying was the biggest fight that we face now is the fight for poverty. Because he knew that once black people got all these rights, that they were still in a disadvantaged position. And a lot of people were still poor. And so he had the March on Washington. The next march that he had planned was the March on Washington for Poverty. It was the Poor People's March. That was the name of the march. Now, all of a sudden, like, America knew that the racial hierarchy they had before was already falling. And granted, we're still facing the effects today. Like, there's still, like, after effects of, you know, slavery and all that. It's still, like, very much here. You know what I mean? But it's more socially, like...
You know what this reminds me of?
What?
Okay, you know, when Kanye West used to go on his rants,
Yeah.
he'd be like, it's not about race anymore.
It
It's
is.
classism.
Bro.
It's classism. You know what I mean?
What Yuval Noah Harari said is
Harari.
said is that, like, the racial hierarchy, every American will agree there's no racial hierarchy in America. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what it turned into, what racism is disguising itself as now is classism.
Yeah.
Call me Kanye West, bro. But Martin Luther King got killed all of a sudden when he started talking about it's the poor people.
It's not about. Well, okay. Yes, it is about black and white. But it's also about rich and poor.
It's about, because now we're okay. We know that racial hierarchy doesn't exist, but now what we're saying is everyone's really okay.
It's just a new system to keep people under.
Exactly.
It's a new way to oppress other people.
Exactly.
And that's essentially effed up. I'm trying to save the F bombs.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. I see you, bro.
You know what it is.
But what's crazy is and this chapter is talking about there's no justice in history.
No.
And every like
And there's no sunshine when she's gone.
and no sunshine.
When she's gone.
But every society likes to be on their moral high horse and think like, yo, we got the best society.
Right.
But like America now, like poor people are out here struggling.
Yeah, man.
You know what I mean?
And it's tough because that kind of ties into like just jumping ahead a few pages here. What I did like about this chapter was he outlined the vicious cycle, which was essentially like the story of slavery.
Yeah.
And black people in America today and how they're still feeling repercussions of that. So what happened was that the slave trade started in America, right?
Yeah.
Out of pure convenience, because they could have gone to Asia for people to work or like slaves, right?
Yeah.
But there was a place in like Africa is already way closer to America.
There was like
than
three reasons.
options. Right. There's 3 options. I don't remember off the top of my head.
There was 3 reasons why they're saying that they chose Africa because
It was established already.
they
It was
already had a slave trade in
It was
in
close,
Africa.
right? And then
And one of the big reasons, which is wild, he was naming the 3 reasons. It was because they were close, because they already had an established slave trade. If they wanted to go to Asia, they'd have to develop a slave trade,
they had to start a whole new market. Why don't you just enter the market?
which would
that
cost them
exists?
more money.
Yeah, exactly.
And then one of the big reasons was that people coming from Africa, there was already malaria in Africa. When you go to
right
to Mississippi and stuff like that, malaria was still a problem.
It's man,
These
that
people
blew my mind, bro.
People in Africa already had developed genetic immunity
right
to malaria, which is crazy because he said that biological superiority equal to cultural inferiority.
Exactly.
Which is nuts because in the old days,
because we have to like highlight that the white slave owners did not have that genetic ability to fight off malaria.
They were genetically inferior
Yeah.
when it came to malaria.
Right.
But because Africans were genetically superior in the fact that they had the antibodies or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not a biologist. What do you expect? To fight off malaria?
Yeah.
They became culturally inferior.
Yes, exactly.
Which is nuts. It's nutty.
So, basically, the timeline for this vicious cycle was that historical event happened, right? The introduction of slaves
And it talks about
into America.
it talks about chance historical event.
Exactly, chance in a way that kind of all these circumstances lined up to this happening.
Yes, it could have been other.
If
people.
all this was happening
You know
in
what I mean?
Asia, they would have gone to Asia.
Yeah,
you know what I
exactly.
mean? But it just so happened that black people or Africans were the ones that had the genetic immunity, were close. They already had a market for slavery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then white people gained control of black people in America, and then to keep them under, they institutionalized slavery, made those discriminatory laws like the Jim Crow laws, right?
Yeah.
That caused poverty and like lack of education amongst that group of people, and that led to prejudices. But what's crazy is that cycle feeds itself. So the cultural prejudices led to more undereducated people in that group of people, in that race, or whatever you want to call it. And it also led to more discriminatory laws. So because there was already that cultural prejudice that was going back hundreds of years, it would just feed all those other things.
You'd have these people who like obviously like people like right after slavery. It's nuts that people think that like right after something as big as that, right after like one sect of people thought that they could own another sect of people think that those like thoughts and feelings will just go away after like
after someone calls it over, it's not over. You know
after
what I mean?
those things are still felt, and what they're saying is like, and you had slavery.
Yeah.
You abolished slavery, but it really wasn't over. There were still these discriminatory laws, Jim Crow laws. They didn't have the right to vote, or when they did have the right to vote, there was poll taxes.
It was only males, right? And all that.
Yeah, and the poll taxes. They had tests and stuff like that too, and it was an extremely unfair test. And then so you have all that, and then that keeps those people at a disadvantage. And then they look and they can say, "Look, black people aren't lawyers, aren't doctors. They aren't holding these high positions,
right?"
Because that's just who they are. But in fact, they are the reason they caused that.
Yeah, exactly.
They're saying that they aren't this, but white people are the reason why they aren't that because of all these laws and all these feelings they have towards them.
Exactly.
They're creating what they're
creating
saying.
their disadvantage, and they're saying like, "Yo, you see that they can't do this is because they're black. But in reality, it's
It's because you did all these things. That's
to
why.
limit their abilities to grow and all that. But it's crazy.
It's nutty,
Side note
bro.
to think about that, people are like, nah, they think it's over, right? Like,
Yeah.
I go to the park and I shoot around, right?
Yeah.
Get my hooping sessions in, right?
We get it, bro. You got a weak jumper. It's
Hey,
cool.
you know what it is. And this dude, this older white dude comes to the park, and he like, I run into him every so often. He like tries to talk to me and stuff. I'm like, whatever, I'll talk to you. And his name is Mike. And this is at the point where like athletes were speaking out about racial prejudice and all these things, like kneeling and
Hey, shut up and dribble, LeBron.
stuff like that, right?
God.
So
I can't wait till the day that LeBron fades one of these people up.
God. Anyway,
All right,
so
sorry, I'm sorry.
Mike was talking to me about like, he was like, you know, like I don't. He's older, by the way,
Yeah.
maybe like 60 or 70. He's like, you know, like I don't really understand why these athletes are like complaining. Like, you know, there's like racism doesn't exist anymore. Like they have so much, and like I mean, they're black, but you don't see them like suffering. And I was like, dude, I kind of bit my tongue because
Yeah.
I wasn't actually trying to start a fade up a 70-year-old man.
You know what's nuts is like, you know that like I know that you didn't bring this topic up, so this
Yeah.
fool just was like ready, like wanted to talk
Dude, no,
about
yeah,
it.
we were just talking about basketball. Like, we were talking about basketball and stuff.
Talk about hooping,
We were
bro.
just talking about regular hoops, and this dude was like, "Yo, like I don't understand why these people are saying anything because everything is good now. Like everything's fine. Like I don't see
It's
it."
all good, bro. It's
Dude.
all
I was
good.
like, yeah, whatever. I was like, I didn't really want
Yeah.
to talk to him, but that's the thing that's still is still prevalent in today's society. Where
Bro,
people, like,
the
see
fact that Black Panther is such a big thing right now,
Yeah.
should prove to everyone that racism and the effects that like it has are still a big thing. The fact that like Black Panther is such a big movie and such a like a moment in American history,
yeah,
should say that like why is it such a big deal that a mostly black dominated movie is all of a sudden a big deal.
right.
You know what I mean? This should be happening all the time. We should be so used to seeing black dominated movies because we're so used to seeing white dominated movies that it's like that all of a sudden we see a movie like Black Panther, it's like, oh, this has never happened before.
Yeah.
That should show you that when we're still having firsts, you know what I mean? When we're still having a first black president, a first black dominated cast in a superhero movie, that should tell you that things aren't right.
What I do also like is that the turnout for that movie was insane, right?
Incredible.
But it's the like Black Americans, African Americans coming out and trying to change the intersubjective culture.
Whoa.
You know what it is?
Whoa.
They're trying to change the myth essentially,
Yeah.
and show the support because that's what it takes when, like I said, like if you're gonna try to go off the grid and make that a thing, like millions of people have to go off the grid to like reject money or reject whatever, right?
And you felt it with this
Right.
movie. like when I was there, like when I didn't go see the movie with you.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
But when you went to go see the movie, like it was like I didn't feel like I was going to see a movie. I felt like I was a part of like a
Yeah.
moment in time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'll remember like going to see Black Panther.
Yeah,
You
no.
know, other movies like I remember seeing Dark Knight and shit, but it wasn't. It was just a movie. Dark Knight was just a movie.
Right.
Black Panther was a moment in time. You know what I mean?
Shout out to Ryan Coogler and the
Bro, I love Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan are my guys, yo.
Yo,
Shout out to
ma. Ask Michael B. Jordan for some water. Ask Michael B. Jordan for something to eat.
shout out Michael
Outta
B.
here.
Jordan, bro.
Get out of here.
Damn.
So also not just like race or people that were brought over here that get disadvantaged. There's culturally in history, there's always been a disadvantage between men and women.
Yeah.
Like women, for whatever reason,
Wait, before we get to that, I want to get to
What's
a
up?
part before that.
go for it.
One of the things I talked about too was this is quotes is biology enables, culture forbids. And and in this chapter he talked a lot about natural and unnatural, and he basically broke natural and unnatural up to a lot of the things I like about this book is he's very much coming from like a biologist, anthropologist
He is
perspective,
by the rules of biology. Like he separates them very well.
which I love. And I don't
Yeah.
know if I talked about this recently, but did I talk about Animal Planet on this one?
You just talked about Animal Planet.
Okay, just making sure. But like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What I like about it is like it's so simple. Biology
Right.
is so simple.
Because it's either 1 or 0. Like it
There's
is or it isn't. You know what I mean?
There's no opinions.
Yeah.
And so he talks about like natural and unnatural, and like quote again, biology enables, culture forbids, and he talks about culture forbids what is unnatural, but from a biological perspective, nothing is unnatural.
Right. So he talked about like the use of like our mouths,
Yeah.
where it's like biology intended them to like breathe and eat or whatever. Right? What?
That part was so funny because I thought he was gonna go somewhere else. Like he intended them for all these things.
But
I was like, bro, Yuval, you need to chill out, bro. Yuval. You wild. You wild. You're wild right now.
But then he said like, but like is like using them for kissing natural or is using them to like
And he said kissing. I was like, yo.
just kissing. But yeah, like is that natural? You know what I mean? Like is insects' wings, which were essentially they started off as solar panels.
There we go.
To collect light.
Yo, that's
you know
all.
what I mean?
Yo, ladies and gentlemen, that's straight memory right there.
You know what it is.
That's straight off the dome.
You know what it is. And like, is it wrong for insects today to use their wings for flight when intentionally they were used
Naturally?
Naturally they were
developed.
created. Or not created, sorry.
Whoop! Watch with the C word, my guy. Yo. That's a bad word on peer pressure.
They were evolved into like solar panels to warm insects' bodies and give them energy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what's crazy is he taught like the thought that like unnatural, the fact of something existing means that it's natural.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Culture created unnatural. And one of the big examples he gives, one of the biggest examples we have now is like gay marriage and things of that nature. You know what I mean? It's like saying like if that exists in nature, which we are nature, the only person saying that's unnatural, what he said, and this is a little wild.
I'll feed you, baby birds.
He said that unnatural comes from a Christian perspective. He said everything that we're saying is unnatural is coming from what Christianity says is quote unquote natural.
And just to like dampen that a little bit, not like okay.
Whoa! I didn't even think that was. I don't know the opposite of damp. I didn't even think that was dry.
It wasn't a hot take, right? Just like, but just
That's what
to,
he said.
I know. And just to like give it some context, like Yuval, I can't tell if he's like not like he's biased towards it, but he like he calls it out a lot. Like this is a religion, and religion is doing this. Like
But
in the book, which is fair. It's like not because it's a very biologically based book.
To be fair, he calls out like not only religion, but he calls out like he says human rights don't exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he even says in the book, a lot of people are going to be mad about that.
He does say that.
Which like he's not. I love this book so much because he's saying everything you think is real
it doesn't exist.
he calls them myths. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like we'll get in a little bit later. We talk
Yeah, no, I
talks about money.
Ooh.
He talks about you know what I mean? But going so that was one of my favorite things is that unnatural only exists culturally.
What was the quote? Culture for what is it?
Culture forbids what is unnatural, but from a biological perspective, nothing is unnatural.
God forgives. I don't. That just reminded me of that for whatever reason.
Anyways, let's get into the what you were talking about because this is one of the interesting points in this chapter.
Right. So historically, there's always been a difference and like a like unevenness to the way society treats men compared to how they treat women.
Which I was so happy he tackled because that is like something that like obviously like we know in this American society.
Yeah.
In the myths we're telling ourselves.
Right.
That men and I'm not saying the myths as in like I don't believe it, but the
This
myths,
is a myth we believe.
But that men and women are equal.
Yeah.
That's a myth.
Right.
I believe it. You know what I
feel
mean?
that.
Like
No,
I'm
I
not-
feel
you
that.
know what
I feel that.
But that's something that hasn't been held even in America. You know what I mean? Like 60 years ago, that wasn't a belief that was held.
Okay, side note, I'm rewatching Mad Men.
Yeah.
It takes place in the 50s. The sexism is rampant.
It's out the window.
Every secretary is a
Yeah.
woman. They all call them, "Oh, get your girl." Like, "Oh, tell your girl to schedule me in," or whatever.
Yeah.
Every time they refer to a female character, it's like sweetheart, honey, all that. And it's crazy, bro. It's like it doesn't end. It never ends. It's nuts. And it shows how far we've come.
Yeah.
Or hopefully in like certain parts of America.
How far we come, but how far we have to go.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're just breaking the ice now.
Damn, we're so woke, bro.
Damn, bro. Dirt off your shoulders, bro.
Man, I'm fucking so awake right now.
The third F bomb.
Never slept. All right.
But yeah, so essentially, women used to be treated as property. So like in the Code of Hammurabi, like
Yeah.
if I raped your wife, you
Oh,
could,
chill with the R word, my guy.
if I sexually harassed your wife, you could have a chance to like damage some of my property or whatever. I don't know exactly what the measurement was, but it's
He's
basically
looking at the book right now. He's searching. He's digging. Hey, I got you. I got you, my
he
guy.
goes into the cast.
Need that assist right now?
You know, yeah, I got the oop.
What he was saying was he was like what I have written down is
Thank you.
why was manhood valued? Because all through human society, manhood, being a man, and males dominated society.
Right.
That's not saying that's right or wrong, but if you look at history, that's the way it existed. And what he's looking for is just like, why? Like, what is it? Are males genetically superior to females? Like, what is it about males that caused them to have that higher position throughout the history of humans? And he provided like 3 like possible explanations, which is pretty interesting.
Oh yeah. That's a little bit further in the
Oh,
chapter.
my bad, my
No,
bad.
you're chilling. I'm just looking through the book actually, like right now. I'm like, that's why I know where it's at.
Well, one of the reasons, one of the most common reasons, and I think this one's still pursued today. I think of people who like do CrossFit and stuff, like guys are just stronger than girls. It's just biology,
Right,
You know what I'm saying?
right.
And he's saying like that's BS. He's saying that's BS for a couple reasons. Because one, that's not true. Like
Yeah.
males are like it's all a product of not how you grow up, but like what you do to your body. Because females can be as strong as males can.
Right.
The second thing, the reason why he says that's not true is if the only thing that mattered was pure power, pure
Yeah.
strength, then we would be in the middle of the pack on the food chain.
Yeah.
We'd be straight in the center of the food chain.
Right.
Because we are not as strong as lions. We're not as good as hunters as tigers. You
Right,
know what I mean?
right.
So if it only was a matter of strength, then that doesn't make sense why males dominated society up until this point.
So similarly to how you talked about slaves were biologically more advanced than their white slave owners.
Yeah.
He talks about how essentially throughout history, men because they've held the dominance
Yeah,
in
yeah.
society, they've had more positions of power where they didn't need to exert physical energy. So
Yeah.
essentially, women were, you could say, more adept in the past to like working physical manual labor jobs. For example, like in a factory, like doing factory manual
Yeah.
labor. If we're saying that men are so much stronger, like why didn't the men start doing those jobs, and why did they reserve all their power to use their brains?
He said if strength was equal to superiority, the strongest people in society don't have any strength.
Yeah,
It's like the Pope
exactly.
or the president.
Yeah.
Donald Trump couldn't. I could fado Donald Trump like
Oh yeah.
like it was nothing.
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
not even like
Trying
that
to flex.
strong, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hope.
You never know. Donald Trump might come
know
through
what
with
I
a wild
mean?
haymaker. And just
I bet he has a couple good shots.
Donald
in him.
Trump might knock Dominic out. You
Bro,
never know.
he's kind of tall, bro, but he got some small ass hands, so you know I could
Yeah.
I could take
Yeah,
those
yeah,
shots.
yeah.
But one of the interesting things he said in this chapter, and it was one of the ones I didn't think about, was and he talked about this earlier on. We talked about this in
Yeah.
the last episode, but we talked about as humans, as we grew up and grew to stand upright,
Yes.
the ability to have babies and like it became harder, and we'd have babies a lot earlier. If you look at a lot of
Exactly.
other animals, they have babies and they're walking within.
They're
like,
ready to go.
They're walking with like an not even an hour, like a couple minutes.
Dude, they come out the womb. They walk out the womb.
Yeah, they was like, yo,
they crawl
what's
out.
cracking? And so, like humans, like you literally have to, for the first couple years, you're attached to that baby.
You have to watch your baby cannot do anything because it's born so early.
And not only that, but women have to bear that child for 9 months up until that point.
Right.
And if you're thinking back to like the foraging days or the days when like we were more dependent on our surroundings and stuff like that, it was harder to hunt. It was harder to move around.
Right.
So what they're saying is women became more dependent upon men
Right.
because they couldn't defend themselves when they were pregnant, when they had kids.
And he's saying that that's a potential reason why, that translates over throughout the history of time or throughout the history, like that's why men have been seen as dominant compared to women.
Exactly. Because in order to this is a quote.
Yeah.
Women had no trouble finding fertile men.
Exactly.
This reminds me of like you go into the club, you know what I mean?
like a high school dance.
A girl could walk into a club and like literally be like, psh, psh, like pick, like have her pick.
Yeah, bro.
And guys literally are like flexing like hard, like yo, let me buy you a drink. Yo, check out these moves.
Dude.
Yo, look what I'm wearing. Like guys it's all a show. You know what I mean? It's
So-
all a show to court the girl.
He said that in nature, the guys are the ones that are ornately like colorful. Like for example, like the peacock. Again.
Yeah.
Like they have all the crazy colors on their flowers, on their feathers and stuff. And he also talks about masculinity a little bit in this chapter. and how in
we
today's
we skipped over all. He talked about gender a lot, which is cool.
Forget dudes, dude. It's not even worth it.
You know
Just
what I
kidding.
mean?
No, but like he compared Louis the 14th.
Damn, this fool can't
Louis
read
the
Roman
14th.
numerals.
Louis the 14th.
He was looking at it, he
Took
was
me a
just
hot
shook.
second.
He
Louis
was
the
like,
14th. Louis the Ziv. Louis the 14th. If you see this picture, he's wearing a wig. He has stockings. He has high heels. You know what I mean? Except he has a huge sword. So it's a little different. They contrast it to a picture of Barack Obama.
Very subdued.
Very
subtle
subdued,
colors.
like the blandest colors. Only thing that's popping for him is the tie. You know what I mean?
You get that power pose going on though.
He does have. He has the Kid Cudi album cover pose.
Wow. TBT.
But yeah, so essentially, like women, they do hold the power when it comes to reproduction.
They do.
Yeah,
They do.
So, and that it kind of baffles me that again, like because they had to, not because like a theory that they had to
Yeah.
lean on men to help them, survive. That's why we ended up as like the quote unquote like dominant figure or gender in society. You know what I mean? And obviously that's not fair. You know what I mean?
Going back to this quote, women had no trouble finding fertile men. Think of a girl going to a club.
Feel that.
But when she had a baby, she needed help obtaining food with other things while she was pregnant. So in order to ensure the survival of her and her children, the woman had to agree to whatever stipulations the men had. Which in my head, that makes sense. Like I can see that viewpoint, and not viewpoint, but I understand. Like at that point, you're at a vulnerable state because you're not like if we were both 20 years old and like you're a girl, I'm a guy. We're both 20 years old. We're in the peak of our,
Physical fitness.
exactly. There's like you could do all that I can do, but at that point, like if we want to like reproduce, I'm not put it as me as a male. I'm not put at a disadvantage.
As the female or the woman in
Yeah.
the situation, like I would have to be held down. Like I can't
Exactly.
do anything. You know
You're
what I mean?
burying the child,
Right. Like
you know what I mean?
I'm like for that. That's kind of crazy because maybe that does feed into it. Like just in like biologically, but the way that things are, the men have a lot more freedom. Like they don't have to worry about anything,
No.
especially when it comes to humans because the babies are born so early.
Bro, if we're going on a hike, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we had to carry we put all our survival needs in a backpack.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yo, carry this.
Right.
I'm free to like move around and like dodge stuff.
Yo,
You're
I-
held down, bro.
I have this. I have to carry this 9 months plus like how many years? The whole.
Not only that,
you know
and
what I mean?
it gets only harder once you have the baby.
Exactly.
And then, but then again, like once you have the baby, then it becomes like, I can help you. You know what I
Right.
mean, I can't help you.
But see, you're not, and you don't have to. Like, I don't know how it worked in like pre-society time, like
Yeah.
hunter gatherer. Like, the men don't have to do that. They can still go off and like run around. You know what I
they
mean?
have the possibility that they could literally have like impregnate a woman and then.
Yeah, they can just dip. You know what I mean? So that might be the reason why men might still be seen as more dominant because in that is sort of a position of power when you can plant your seed and then dip out. Like you can just go on to the next thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They essentially do have more flexibility and more ability to move around in
Because
society.
they are left unchanged.
Yeah. They don't have to worry about anything. They're not the ones dealing with it.
So if we're both at 100%, and then all of a sudden like we like procreate, and then you have to bury you're like I don't know what percent you go down to, but you definitely go down
Yeah.
physically. Like your physical capabilities go down. You can't be jamming and dunking when you're pregnant. You know what I mean?
I feel that.
So it only
Class
makes
you up still.
it only makes sense that because of that, that's why males develop that advantage over history, because they didn't suffer from not. I don't want to say suffer, but they didn't.
Feel that weight
Yeah,
of having to take care of someone.
that was interesting because I never thought about it. I always wondered that. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because it's over every society of humans. That's always been the reason. It's been like, why? And I think like the scapegoat is always like the physical ability thing.
But still, again, if it's the physical ability, like why do we put men in positions of like brain power? You know what I mean? To
Yeah.
lead nations, you know what I mean, or like to run businesses. Why is it predominantly men when they or we are like supposed to be the physically stronger ones? You know what I mean?
I think it's mostly just men imposing their will and then like gaining that advantage because they don't have to bear those kids, and then exploiting that advantage, and then putting women at a disadvantage. You know what I mean?
So like where does that go? Because it's tough to change. You can't change biology, right?
Well,
Like-
sorry, before you get into that question, what was interesting too is they said that evolution favored more docile women because once you were able,
I do remember that. Yeah.
he said that once you were pregnant and you basically caved to the wills of that man who you were having that baby with, those were the women who were more likely to survive back in the forager and the early days of human society.
Exactly.
Because you had to be dependent on someone. So that bred for women who are more docile and more
Dependent. and stuff like
Exactly.
that. But see, again, in our lifetime, in multiple lifetimes, women will always be the ones to bear the child, right?
Exactly.
And it's tough because to overcome that, you can't overcome biology, right? And it's like making that cultural change it's immensely harder because biology is always going to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's I mean personally I can't sympathize in my from experience, but just from the outside looking in, that's tough because you have to fight biology saying stuff to you and also the vicious cycle of always having the kid being tied down, and then that feeds into those certain rules that keep women down. You know what I mean?
But it's different now because now that you have the society we're living in.
Oh, more people understand.
Not only that,
the
but
myth is wrong.
And as we I don't have to physically fend for myself anymore.
It's a
so
different world.
the biology is almost taken out of it because back then it came down to your physical ability. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Could you outrun this lion and shit
Right.
like that? You know, could you defend yourself if a lion approached you?
Right.
Now in modern times, that doesn't matter. It's all societal.
Just to refute that, some companies don't give pregnant women much time for marital leave.
yeah. So there's still
stuff like that.
No, very true. No, I'm just saying that.
I feel you though.
No. I wasn't saying that women are still
No,
not
I
at
get
a
you.
disadvantage
Yeah,
in
yeah,
today's
yeah.
society, but I'm saying it's not as physical that women have the.
It's not natural threats like lions and predators and stuff like that, right?
Yes, because now
Right.
now it's more. They're still facing societal pressures,
Mm-hmm.
but the physical pressures that they felt back then are relieved because now they have. You can be a single parent and a single
For
mother
sure.
raising a child, and you're not. Yes, you still are bearing that child,
Yes.
but the physical pressures of providing for yourself aren't there because you can have this job and do this.
You
stuff.
can still do
it now. Because that society has been passed on to us, now it's more societal pressures that are preventing you from.
Yeah. But change is upon us. Change is upon us. And
Damn, that was.
I feel that. Chapter 9?
Let's get it.
All right. Thank you for
Let's
sticking
get
with
it.
us.
Wow,
Chapter
that
9.
was. We're gonna
Chapter
end
8.
it.
Chapter 8
Yo,
was a
we're
deep
gonna,
one.
Yo.
I'm a fan.
Brandon told you, man. He said that was a tough chapter.
That was a tough chapter. Chapter
Wow,
9.
do we still gotta go to chapter 10?
Yeah, we gotta go to chapter 10. Do you want to just part 3?
What,
the
chapter
unification
9,
of humankind.
There was one.
Chapter 9 was basically about globalization and cultures spreading throughout the world.
No, sorry. Yes, it was.
And so
There's a bigger point that I wanted to make that because in my head it wasn't about that.
Oh, no, sure.
Let me make sure of that.
Give me that.
So this chapter, actually, I didn't. It was one of these shorter chapters, and it was about the arrow. What was the chapter name?
The arrow of history.
Yeah, and it said that history moves towards a more unified society, basically.
Right, because he talked about the network of artificial instincts is culture.
Ooh, did you get that from the book?
Hell yeah, I did. And what a big point of it was that
This was flipping through pages furiously.
the Afro-Asian world, which is like Africa and Asia and Europe.
That's what Afro-Asian meant? Wow.
People don't know,
Just
bro.
kidding, my guy.
You gotta illustrate
You
it
good,
for
you
their
good.
minds.
All right, you good.
Basically, that was where everything spread out of. So
That's
they
the Mecca, the hub.
Yeah, basically. So
My Bombay is hella warm now.
it's cool, bro. You can power through it.
I'm trying.
I got it. So basically, they hit 4 areas. They hit the Mesoamerican world, which was Central America and North America. The Andean world, which is Western South America.
There you go. Power through.
The Australian
Australia.
world, the Australian world, which is Australia, and the Oceanic world, which is like parts of the Pacific Ocean,
Which is
and
like Oceania.
Hawaii, and then like New Zealand. So basically, from here, started to spread like universal cultural ideas
Yeah.
that we all share, that we all can operate on. You know what I mean?
It talked about like if you look at it from a macro perspective, like it may seem that like things are like the arrow of history moves in this way, but like eventually it moves towards growing and connecting and being and moving towards a more unified world. They talked about like Tasmania in there and how like back in the day, literally like if you were in the Ottoman Empire or something like that, and you had people living in Tasmania and stuff like that, and he said in the book they might as well be living on Mars.
It was a whole other world.
They were
different
literally
planet.
they were on the same planet, but it might have well been literally on a Jupiter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, or something like that, because the world wasn't connected. And if you look at it through a macro lens,
Shasta Pangea.
if you look back and you step back, like
Back, comeback season, back in the day. Drake reference.
I dropped my pen. Everything's moving towards a more unified. They talked about the arrow of history moving towards a more unified.
Right.
That part was like whatever. That was very like okay. Like it wasn't that like a lot of the other things in the book was like whoa shit. Like, yeah, that one was like obviously.
What I do? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dom. I'm sorry.
Every man-made culture is packed with wait, are we on chapter 9?
Yes.
Okay, my favorite part about it, I didn't even take notes on that part because that part was like stupid to me. This is the first quote I have.
I didn't take notes on it at all.
I know you didn't. Failure. Just kidding. That was deep.
Straight up.
I'm impressed. That was a good bomb job. The first quote I have written down for this chapter: "Every man-made, God damn, I have bad writing. Order. Every man-made order is packed with internal contradictions, and this process fuels change. Every society or culture contains contradictions." And then, so another quote, in the present time. So this chapter is about the contradictions that each society carry. Don't give me that fucking look.
I'm not giving you any look, bro.
In the present time, the main contradiction in our society is equality versus individual freedom. And it went through a whole bunch of other societies and talked about all the contradictions that they have. And it talked about how these contradictions fueled us and pushed our society forward, but it specifically focused on American culture and how we're founded on this idea of equality. Every man, every woman is raised equal. We're all the same. But also at the same time,
We're really not.
No. Let me. Yes, but it talked about individual freedom, and those two ideas are squarely opposed to each other. And like I think about it in terms of like Democrats and Republicans. Democrats, like at their core, they're fighting for equality.
Oh, I do remember this part. Like it was more equal distribution of the wealth throughout society. And all
Exactly,
that, right?
wanting everyone to have that equality that's promised to us in the Constitution. Republicans are focused on individual freedom. Those two ideas are directly in conflict with each other. You know what I mean? Because like if you put like individual, like you can't be equal. There's this one really I've seen this it's I don't know if it's a meme. It's like a social justice picture, and it talks about equality opposed to I forgot what the other word they use. Social justice as opposed to equality. Equality is like you, and it shows these people, they're trying to look over a fence to a game, right? And this fence is a certain height, and all these people are different sizes. So equality is giving everyone the same box. You know what I mean? Like everyone has I'm giving you this, I'm giving you this, I'm giving you this. They all have the same box to stand on, to see. The tall person is going to be able to see over, but the small person, they have that same box, they're not going to be able to see over.
Oh, I feel you. I feel that.
Social justice is giving the smaller person a bigger box, obviously. You know what I mean?
I feel that.
Because America is founded on equality in terms of everyone has the same opportunity.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're under the laws, we're ultra equal. And it talked about biology saying, biology actually no one is equal.
Right.
Biology actually everyone is different. So that was one of my favorite parts about that, and it talked about America having cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
Which is like we hold these values, but these values are directly opposed to each other. And I think about it. One of the ways I think about this in, and bear with me, this is a little long one, not a long one, but in abortion, we're going there, my guy.
I'm listening. I'm kind of reading the book.
I know. I see you looking at the book. In abortion, right? So if you were to explain to me the main idea of abortion through the lens of a Democrat. Like, what are Democrats' views on abortion?
It's the woman's choice. If she wants to do that if she wants to make that decision, it's her call. It's not necessarily let's like remove this like embryo or fetus or whatever is in there. Like it's not like it's not like a yes, let's always do that. It's up to her. Like if she wants to do that, she can definitely take that as an option. It's either like she says no or she says yes, and that's up to her.
We agreed earlier, right? That Democrats' basis of like one of their bases is equality.
Yeah.
Which is nuts because when I think of it in terms of abortion, you would think that Democrats would have a view where like the baby has equal rights to the mother.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, and if they have equal rights, then the mother shouldn't be able to choose whether like that abortion standpoint that you just said, which is the Democrats' view. You would think that that was a Republican's view because Republicans are all about individual choice, individual freedom, individual freedom.
Yeah.
So you think that as a Republican standing for individual freedom and
Right.
like I have the right to do this, the right to do this, you would think that that's a Republican's viewpoint. And that's when I see cognitive dissonance because it's actually Republicans who are standing up for equality of the baby and of the
Mother.
They're standing up for the equality side when the Democrats are actually standing up. So my bad, I didn't mean to hit you. When the Democrats are actually standing up for the individual freedom side.
Right.
So even though like at the core, Democrats are about equality and Republicans are about individual freedom, when it comes to something like abortion, there's kind of a cognitive dissonance there, which is interesting because it talks about America having cognitive dissonance throughout everything.
Right. So just changing gears completely, my guy. Just changing gears completely. This spread of culture did bring things from certain places in certain lands to different areas of the world where we think are normalized, but really they were never there to begin with. Like, you know, in this chapter, they talked about how American Indians are always seen as the ones like...
You want to talk about horses?
Hell yeah, bro.
I see that picture right there.
This part was so interesting to me.
Yeah, that was
like
cool.
things that are seen as natural to certain landscapes.
Yeah.
For example, like horses and Native Americans are always tied together, right?
Italian food. They talked about that too.
Also, yes. But like horses were not they weren't in America naturally. They're not from the American soil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were only there when Europeans brought them over. You know what I mean? And so also Italian food, like none of that is native to Italy. None of those ingredients.
Tomatoes, chilies, all those came from...
All these things spread because of globalization and spreading from the big Afro-Asian world. I forgot what it was called. They all spread from there, and just everything started globalizing, and cultures began to mix.
Yeah.
And they became the cultures that we know today. But in reality, like the chilies that are known in Indian food or whatever are actually from
The spices in Indian food.
from Mexico. You know,
tomatoes
that region. But yeah, I had a way less deep takeaway from that chapter.
Hey, it's all about the horses and tomatoes. You feel me?
I'm in that, bro. I'm about that, bro.
Yo, let's hit chapter 10,
All
my
right.
guy. Chapter 10. Give me the chapter name.
Can we get the theme song for The Apprentice? Money, 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 money.
Damn, that's the... Yo, that's nuts,
That's the
bro.
theme song
I can't
for
believe
The
that fool-
Apprentice.
You know, some days I wake up
You
and like,
think about Donald Trump being a president?
bro, it's yo, it's fucking wild to me.
You're fired.
That's like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes. It's wild. So, money's fake. money's a lie. Open your third eye. It's a myth.
I love the quotes I write down in my notebook because like it's like I like pull the wildest quotes out.
Right.
Dollars have value only in our imagination.
It's true, bro. Wake up. Wake up, America. Wake up.
It talked about how money became. It talked about like so chapter 10 is basically about money.
Yes.
And it talks about like money being like a staple of human civilization.
Right.
And it talks about how it developed. Because if you think about it, back in the day when when it was a smaller society, I would do all these things and we'd trade, we'd barter. I got these apples.
I got these shoes.
I could trade you for that.
But then they came to the problem of like, how many apples is like a pair of shoes worth?
When people became more specialized, when like I only
In bigger societies, that was the reason, because societies needed specialized people to do certain
exactly.
things.
Then you start just making shoes. I start just making apples. But at the same time, if I need some shoes, you don't need apples.
Right.
So it's like, yo, you could pull another person into this, but this person needs a lawyer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
And
so
at the
they
same
still
time-
don't need apples.
At the same time, if I did want apples, if I wanted 200 apples for my shoes, like that's not very reasonable. It's not very convenient for
Yeah.
me to hand you a pair of shoes you could take away with you. I have to get a cart, a horse, or whatever to pull all these apples with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So they and that started the formation of money, and it's the first form of money that they can trace was grains.
Yes.
It was like it was barley. That was the
Right.
first form of money, and like that was like it started developing because people would trade barley, but it would be like the reason why they know it was the first form of money because you couldn't eat that much barley. Like you would take that barley not because you could eat it, but because you knew that other people needed barley and you could trade this barley for something else.
Also, thinking about the future, like you could store it and use it for future events if
Yeah.
you chose to with that form of currency.
They said that was the first step because people started buying into the value of barley. It went on because in the beginning, things you traded had biological value. I could eat this.
Right. I could use this. You know what
Barley
I mean?
became the first thing where I was like, yo, I could trade this for something else. This doesn't mean anything to me, but I can use this for this. What was crazy is say like they went from barley, then they started using like silver, but like silver, like you had to measure it out still, you had to have a scale. Then they started minting coins. So like the king would be like, yo, this is an official coin.
I basically with the mint with the stamp on the coins, he would basically endorse it and say like, this is the correct amount. This is genuine silver.
You have my word, this is 0.02 silver.
That's why counterfeiting money is such a big deal because essentially it's like a contract or a promise from the government or from the president or the king that this is real. You can use this.
Yeah.
But was the quote that blew my mind in this chapter. I just want to get it.
Look at the book.
This is wild.
Gotta search
bro.
through these
The
paragraphs.
sum total money in the world is about $60 trillion. Yet the sum total of coins and banknotes is less than $6 trillion.
That's nuts.
More than 90% of all money, more than $50 trillion appearing in our accounts, exists only in computer servers.
It's all an idea.
Dude, that's so wild to me, bro. That's so, like, we're basically buying with ones and zeros at this point.
What's nuts? What's not only nuts about that is like when you go down the ones and zeros, like obviously ones and zeros don't exist. That's
No.
more of like a digital form.
Right.
But what's crazy is like that digital form is accenting that it's an idea. Like you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it is 100% an idea, but it says like money is actually the most fluent language in the world.
I don't like you. I get, but you have the money, and we can work through money.
I can work with someone from China right now. If I say I can pay you this much to do this, bro, we could do it. Everyone
Yeah.
understands money, and then one of the
'Cause
craziest
everyone
things,
buys in.
dollars have value in our imagination. Dollars actually, like we moved away from actual biologically tangible things
Yeah.
that I could eat to these things that have actual no effect on us. And even like money's not backed by gold anymore.
No.
It used to be backed by gold. Now it's literally just a piece of paper. It's the idea we're buying into.
Now it's digital. You know what I mean? So now it's like what I did like about it, this chapter also was the examples he made out of like people in the concentration camps during the Holocaust. How they didn't have any real money, obviously, right? So they started using cigarettes as money, and it's crazy because they all started buying into the system of cigarettes. Like a bottle of alcohol or a fifth of alcohol, whatever, would be like 800 cigarettes.
400 cigarettes for 0.25 gallons of milk.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy that cigarettes became their dollar and cents.
Yeah.
And so essentially,
Side note, I saw 4 people in a car in a Honda Civic today. They were all smoking a cigarette. I was like, yo, that's probably the smelliest car.
they're all
ever.
smoking one cigarette or they're all
smoking an individual
Okay,
cigarette.
yeah.
Yo, how do you live your life like that, my guy? Anyway, I'm sorry.
No, I feel that. I feel that. But it was cool. Like a 10 ounce packet of margarine was Vegemite was was 30 cigarettes.
My favorite part of this thing was it talked about it was like why it was like yes, okay, so like they talk about gold. Like Europeans had a thirst for gold, and then you go back to like when Europeans invaded like my heart, the Incans and the Mayans and the Aztecs and stuff like that. And the Aztecs, like they had gold, but they decorated it, but it wasn't worth as much in their eye as like it was to Europeans. But they're like, why if gold meant so much to Europeans, why all of a sudden did gold take over and become so valuable around the world? And it talked about the phenomenon, and like it makes sense because look, let's say like all of a sudden like we didn't know about gold, right? And you live in a country all the way across the pond.
Yep.
I lived over here. I start having gold, and I value gold. You come and visit me, and you're like, yo, these people think this thing is like crazy expensive. So all of a sudden you start getting all the gold from your land.
Yep.
You start bringing it over here, trading with my people. all of a sudden the value
because you see the importance in gold, I see the importance of gold.
exactly.
And so that kind of balances out the value between us. Because if I have it in my land and you value it, I'm gonna essentially like leverage that and say like, oh, we can talk now. You know what I mean?
My belief in the value of gold
Mm-hmm.
causes you to believe in the value of gold.
For sure. It's like, okay, you know what I thought about? In the sneaker world,
Bro, no.
In the sneaker
bro,
world, it's all based off of that. Like
it's all based on opinion.
it's all based on, like, for example, like quote unquote like hype. Like if this shoe coming out, if everyone thinks it's hot, more people are gonna want it, right? So that basically raises the price, and now shoe companies can limit the quantity. So if there's only 500 to go around and 10,000 people think it's hot, the value is actually gonna drive up because
Supply and demand.
everyone wants it. You know what I mean?
You know what's nuts is I literally instantly thought about like streetwear brands and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because you think about Supreme, like if you don't know, Supreme is a streetwear company.
1994.
And they literally sell these box logo tees,
Yeah.
which are white t-shirts with literally a red box that says Supreme in it.
Mm-hmm.
How much are these joints selling for?
Dude, they're depending on the t-shirt, like you could pay like upwards of $1,000 depending on when it was made, what version, like what collab, whatever.
Tangible value for this, there is like I probably have shirts that are like tangibly like fabrics and all that stuff worth more
Yeah.
than that shirt. That cost me probably like $20-$30.
Right.
But the fact that people buy into the Supreme logo, people buy into the value of what a Supreme box logo shirt
Yeah.
is, it drives the value up of it. Like if you think this is valuable and you'll pay that much money for it, that means it is actually that much. Because then I can sell it to you and then I see that as valuable and then it has a domino effect.
It's crazy because like if you thinking about that now, Supreme tells a perfect myth.
Yeah.
Like they cultivated their story to make their shit hot. You know what I mean? And so it's all driven off of hype, and if more people want it, and they make less of it, you know,
Which is
And-
nuts because it's not only about Supreme. That's how our money works. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
like, and it's crazy because we got trapped into it because they're saying like if people believe in it, you're almost to a point
you're
forced
feeding
to
the
believe it.
system to work more by believing in money. You're feeding the fire.
The more publicity Bitcoin gets, the higher those stock prices are going to go. The higher the value of Bitcoin is going to go because the more people are going to believe in it and be like, yo, Bitcoin? Oh, yo, he thinks Bitcoin's valuable. I'm going to go buy some Bitcoin. Oh, and the more and more and more and more people buy it, that price or that stock and that demand is going to go up and up and up, and the price of it is going to go through the roof.
That's amazing to me that Bitcoin is just reading that more than 90% or 90% of the world's money is digital now. Like that just immediately threw my mind to Bitcoin.
Which is nuts because like if I'm sending you money, I'm sending you through Venmo.
I'm sending it through Cash App. You know what I mean? Like it's all numbers.
I'm
And-
literally pressing a button and then you're able to buy food.
yeah, it's crazy.
This is nuts.
It's the world we live at. Where do you see this going though? Like I think that how many years do you think it's gonna take for Bitcoin and digital? Maybe Bitcoin's not the one. Maybe Ethereum's not the
20
one.
years.
I give it like 20, 30 years.
Bro, I'm surprised I even still have to carry a card with me, to be honest.
Apple-
Like, it's going to go in like, and I heard what's wild is I heard like in Berkeley and stuff,
Yeah.
Apple Pay is like accepted everywhere. Like, down here, we haven't even started using Apple Pay.
I don't even use Apple Pay, bro.
You know what I mean? It's all going to go through your phone. It's all going to go through your phone. You're not going to have to carry it. Why would you have to carry a card anymore? You know what I mean? That doesn't make any sense to me. And that shit's going to happen. It like used to be where you had to swipe it. Now you have to insert it. Now you tap it.
Yeah.
Soon that's why you even have a card.
Right.
What does that matter? You know what I mean? So
It's just a physical way to represent these ones and zeros. You know?
we're literally just digitizing ourselves.
Next thing you know,
Hey, This is a preview for our next chapter as we go into the future of Sapiens. You feel me?
I feel that.
You feel me?
All right, man. Any last words on chapter 6 through 10? This was a long episode, by the way. Damn.
Hey man, you know what we're doing?
I'll feed you, baby birds.
That's what we're doing. We're taking these
We
large
tune up
concepts,
Oh man,
making them into a bolus, and then putting that in your mouth.
masticating, if you would say, just masticating it up, chewing it up.
Bolus squad.
Bolus gang. Shout out to Tim Chrome.
Shout out to Chrome Prime Life.
All right, man. That was episode 36 of Pure Pages. It's your boy Brando, Damisito. Thanks for listening.
It's your boy who?
Brando, Damisito. Thanks for listening. Peer pressure. We love you, baby birds.
Peer
Tweet,
pressure.
love you.
Peer pressure. Pressure. peer pressure.